The first century after Christ was a period of enormous historical importance in Judea, marked by Roman occupation. Under the rule of the Roman Empire, the region experienced a complex intersection of political, religious, and cultural factors. Jerusalem, with its imposing central temple, became a symbol of both faith and power. This temple, which was the heart of Jewish religious and cultural life, quickly turned into a point of conflict, reflecting the struggle between Jewish identity and Roman imperial authority. The Roman occupation brought with it a system of government that drastically reduced the autonomy of local leaders, forcing a tense and multifaceted relationship between Jewish religious leaders and Roman rulers. This Roman imposition directly impacted all aspects of life in Judea, from politics to culture, and the daily lives of the people. In addition to a strong military presence, the Romans instituted a rigorous system of tribute and political control, consolidating their domination. The Temple of Jerusalem, being the spiritual epicenter of the Jewish nation, annually attracted thousands of pilgrims, and this gave it not only religious significance, but also immense political and economic value. Controlling the temple meant controlling the people's soul, and the Romans knew this, which made the occupation even more delicate and tense. In this inflamed environment, figures such as Caiaphas and Annas emerged, who played central roles in religious leadership. As high priests, they were at the top of the religious hierarchy, but their influence went beyond the spiritual aspects. They also became powerful political figures, with authority over the temple and its administration. The office of high priest, amid Roman occupation, was intrinsically linked to political power, and Caiaphas, along with Annas, not only led the people in the religious sphere, but also negotiated a delicate line between maintaining order under Roman rule and preserve Jewish traditions and beliefs. The relationship between Jewish and Roman leaders was characterized by constant tension, motivated by fear of revolt and the need to preserve privileges. This context of oppression and resistance is essential to understand the decisions made by figures like Caiaphas and Annas, especially with regard to the arrest, trial, and crucifixion of Jesus, events that would change history forever. If you want to know more about this fascinating period and the complex relationships between the Jews and Romans, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any details. In the 1st century AD, Annas and Caiaphas were prominent religious leaders with central roles in the administration of the temple in Jerusalem and in Jewish communal life. They were embedded in a power dynamic that transcended the spiritual realm, reflecting a complex intersection between religion and politics. The position of high priest, especially in the context of Roman occupation, not only conferred authority over religious rituals and practices, but also granted direct influence over the financial control of the temple, including the collection of taxes and the administration of commercial transactions, such as exchange of coins, which was essential for the functioning of the temple. Annas, by occupying the position of high priest, consolidated a priestly dynasty that had a lasting impact on the religious leadership of Judea. His influence was not restricted to the time he held the position officially, as, even after being deposed by the Romans, he maintained a significant presence through his sons and sons-in-law, who assumed the same position. This system of appointments within the family itself ensured that religious power remained concentrated in the same lineage, guaranteeing the continuity of its influence over the temple and the Jewish people. Caiaphas, in turn, reinforced this family alliance by marrying Annas' daughter, bringing these two powerful figures even closer together. Appointed high priest around AD 18, Caiaphas assumed a leadership role in both religious and political matters. Their marriage not only consolidated a personal union, but also strengthened the priestly dynasty that exercised control over the main matters of Jewish life in the period. This alliance between Annas and Caiaphas allowed the family's power to remain intact for several decades, with 5 of Annas' sons, in addition to Caiaphas, holding the position of high priest at different times. Caiaphas' position in the temple in particular marked a turning point in tensions between the Jews and the Romans. The temple, as a center of religious and political power, became a place of constant surveillance by the Roman authorities, who feared popular uprisings. At the same time, Caiaphas and Annas needed to balance maintaining internal order and cooperating with the Romans to preserve their privileges and avoid reprisals against the people. This constant tension shaped the decisions and actions of these figures, including Caiaphas' involvement in the events that led to Jesus' arrest and trial. These events, which occurred during a period of increasing political and religious tension, shed light on the complexity of relations between Jewish leaders and Roman authorities, in addition to highlighting the intricate network of power that permeated first-century Judea. The continuity of this lineage priesthood, marked by the lasting influence of Annas and his family, reflected the fusion between religious authority and political control, in a period when the future of the Jewish people and its autonomy were constantly threatened by foreign oppression. Caiaphas was widely known for his cunning opportunism and tireless pursuit of power. His ability to navigate the complex political and religious relationships of the time positioned him as an influential and strategic figure. He and Annas belonged to a religious sect that did not believe in the resurrection of the dead or the final judgment, distinguishing themselves from other Jewish currents, such as the Pharisees, who defended these beliefs. This sect, possibly formed by Sadducees, presented specific theological convictions that directly influenced their view of the world and their actions, both in the religious and political context. These beliefs shaped the way Annas and Caiaphas approached the fundamental issues of the time, especially regarding the preservation of social and religious order under Roman control. Both emerged as prominent figures in an extremely tense occupation scenario, where religious decisions were deeply intertwined with the political game, and the survival of their leadership roles depended on a delicate balance between serving Rome's interests while protecting the integrity of its traditions and the Temple of Jerusalem. Caiaphas, in particular, played a prominent role in the plot that culminated in the arrest and crucifixion of Jesus. He and Annas, representatives of the priestly elite, were inserted in a context where Jewish religious leaders had to constantly deal with the pressure of maintaining order in the temple and in the community, while satisfying the demands of the Roman authorities, who feared uprisings and insurrections. Under Roman occupation, the Temple of Jerusalem was more than a religious center. It was a focus of political and economic power, which made the position of high priest extremely coveted and sensitive to external pressure. In this tense environment, Jesus' growing popularity represented a direct challenge to the stability that Annas and Caiaphas sought to maintain. Jesus' revolutionary teachings, his proclamation of the kingdom of God, and his miracles attracted an ever-growing crowd of followers. This charisma, combined with messages of change and hope, generated great concern among religious leaders. Caiaphas and Annas feared that Jesus might provoke a popular revolt, something that would not only endanger Roman rule, but also shake the religious and political structure they had carefully maintained. The Roman occupation in itself had already heightened tempers among the Jews, who yearned for liberation. The arrival of a charismatic figure like Jesus, capable of unifying the masses around ideas that challenged established authorities, was seen as a real and immediate threat. For Caiaphas and Annas, the growth of Christianity represented a breaking point in their control over the population and the religious order, intensifying their need to act quickly to neutralize the influence of Jesus and prevent a rebellion from destabilizing the delicate balance that existed between the Jews and the Roman Empire. This growing fear led Caiaphas and Annas to draw up a detailed plan to capture and imprison Jesus, aware that a public arrest could trigger revolts and instability. Therefore, they opted for a more discreet and cautious approach. Caiaphas, skilled in the art of politics, took the lead in the strategy, ensuring that the action was carried out without attracting the attention of the people. Their intention was to neutralize Jesus, before his growing popularity and charisma became a true threat to Judea's religious and political status quo. The centerpiece of this plan was the betrayal of Judas Iscariot, one of Jesus' closest disciples. Judas, driven by personal disappointments or selfish interests, offered to secretly betray Jesus. This act was seen as the perfect opportunity for Caiaphas and Annas. The moment chosen was crucial. Jesus would be captured in an isolated place, far from the crowds that followed him, so that public unrest would be avoided. Jesus' arrest, therefore, occurred under carefully planned circumstances, taking advantage of the absence of the public and the vulnerability of the religious leader in a calmer environment. Caiaphas played a prominent role in the Sanhedrin, the supreme council of Jewish religious leaders, skillfully manipulating the process to justify the condemnation of Jesus. His political astuteness became clear when he argued that Jesus' sacrifice was necessary to avoid popular uprisings and guarantee the nation's stability. Under his leadership, the Sanhedrin presented Jesus as a threat to public peace, a convenient justification that not only ensured the approval of Roman authorities, but also preserved the privileges and power of the religious leadership. When Jesus was brought before Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor, he faced a trial rife with false accusations, orchestrated by Caiaphas and the Sanhedrin. Caiaphas pressed for a decision that would lead to crucifixion, insisting that Jesus' removal was an imperative necessity to maintain order. Caiaphas' true motivation was rooted in protecting the interests of Judea's religious and political elite, who saw themselves threatened by the growing popularity of Jesus and the implications of his teachings. The crucifixion of Jesus, therefore, was not just a physical punishment, but a calculated strategy to preserve the power and control of religious leaders. Caiaphas and his allies viewed Jesus' execution as a preventative measure against any challenge to their authority. However, the period following Jesus' death revealed that, even in the face of his crucifixion, Jesus' influence persisted. The resurrection of Jesus, proclaimed by his followers, shook the foundations of the religious leadership of the time. Caiaphas, refusing to accept the resurrection, saw it not just as a theological issue, but as a direct threat to his own authority and the decisions he had made against Jesus. The denial of the resurrection was an attempt to preserve control over the narrative and prevent the growing Christian faith from undermining its power. In addition to rejecting the resurrection, Caiaphas played an active role in the persecutions of Jesus' early followers, seeking to suppress the growth of Christian communities that posed a growing challenge to the established order. These persecutions included arrests and the approval of actions against prominent figures such as Stephen, one of the first deacons of the early Christian church, who was martyred with the consent of religious authorities. Caiaphas's relentless stance reflected a fear that Christianity would destabilize the power structure that he and other Jewish leaders had maintained for so long. Annas, in turn, also continued to exert significant influence in the Jerusalem temple after Jesus' crucifixion. His reputation for corruption and questionable religious practices made him a controversial figure, but his authority endured for years, even in the face of the political and religious changes that unfolded in Judea. Eventually, however, Annas met his end at the hands of the Romans around AD 70, during the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. This event marked the end of his life, but his fame and the legacy of his priestly dynasty persisted, influencing the religious history of the time even after his death. Annas's reputation for corruption was widely associated with commercial practices in the Jerusalem temple, including animal trading and currency exchange, as mentioned in the Gospels. These activities, although extremely profitable, tarnished the image of Annas and other religious leaders, who were seen as accomplices in financial exploitation that should be condemned in a sacred space. These acts reinforced the negative view that many Jews and followers of Jesus had of the religious leadership of the time, which seemed more concerned with material gains than with preserving the faith. Even after Jesus' death, Anna's influence endured through his descendants, with several of his sons and relatives serving as high priest. This continuity in priestly leadership, a true family dynasty, ensured that the power and interests established by Annas continued to shape Judean religious and political practices for decades. On the other hand, the final fate of Caiaphas is enveloped in a fascinating layer of historical curiosity. Long after the events surrounding his involvement in the trial and crucifixion of Jesus, a discovery was made during construction work in a park located south of ancient Jerusalem. Archaeologists, while excavating the site, stumbled upon a tomb that, after extensive analysis, was identified as a possible final resting place for members of Caiaphas' family. Among the findings, the most ornately decorated tomb contained an inscription bearing the name Joseph, which was linked to Caiaphas' lineage. This discovery did more than just reveal the location of a family tomb. It brought to light new information that provided a fresh perspective on the figures who played such pivotal roles in the dramatic events leading to the crucifixion of Jesus. This discovery quickly gained the attention of both scholars and the general public. However, despite the excitement, the authenticity of this find did not go unchallenged. A number of archaeologists and scholars expressed skepticism about whether this tomb genuinely belonged to Caiaphas' family. This sparked an intense debate within the academic community. The defenders of the tomb's authenticity pointed to several key pieces of evidence, notably the correlation between the tomb's description and the historical records provided by Flavius Josephus, a Jewish historian from the same period. Josephus had written about Caiaphas and his family in considerable detail, and the inscription Joseph, son of the family of Caiaphas, seemed to align directly with Josephus' documentation. This connection added a significant degree of credibility to the discovery, suggesting that the tomb could indeed be a genuine artifact from the time of Caiaphas. On the other hand, skeptics raised several doubts regarding the authenticity of the tomb and its connection to Caiaphas. They pointed to the possibility that the inscription could have been a forgery or that the evidence might have been misinterpreted. The nature of archaeological finds from ancient times often opens the door to selective interpretation, where certain elements may be highlighted while others are disregarded. As a result, the debate remains open, with both sides continuing to analyze the evidence in detail. Archaeologists are carefully studying the tomb, hoping to uncover additional clues that might provide more definitive answers about its origins and its ties to Caiaphas' family. The broader story of Caiaphas and Annas, as prominent figures within the biblical narrative, serves as a profound reflection on the complexities of power, authority, and morality. These two leaders occupied crucial positions in the religious and political hierarchy of first-century Judea. Their actions, decisions, and alliances played central roles, not only in shaping the fate of Jesus, but also in influencing the political and religious landscape of the time. In particular, the case of Caiaphas stands out as an example of the intricate balance between maintaining power and navigating ethical dilemmas, especially when personal ambition and the preservation of the status quo take precedence over higher moral principles. The narrative of Caiaphas and Annas also prompts us to consider how figures of authority are remembered throughout history. Their choices, driven by a combination of fear, ambition, and the desire to maintain control, reflect the ways in which leaders often faced difficult decisions in moments of crisis. While their influence was undeniably significant in their time, their legacy has continued to be a subject of debate and analysis for centuries. The story of their involvement in the crucifixion of Jesus, along with the discovery of possible burial sites, illustrates how history is never static. New discoveries and interpretations continue to shed light on figures from the past, keeping their stories relevant to contemporary discussions about leadership and ethics. The decisions made by Caiaphas and Annas resonate far beyond the political or religious conflicts of their time. Their actions not only influence the immediate outcomes of the events leading to Jesus' crucifixion, but they also left a lasting impact on the evolution of the Jewish community and the rise of Christianity. As key players in one of the most significant moments in religious history, their roles are remembered as part of a larger conversation about the responsibilities that come with power and the consequences of decisions made in the name of preserving order and authority. The ongoing debate about the authenticity of the Caiaphas family tomb serves as a reminder of how historical figures are continually re-examined through the lens of modern scholarship. The discovery of the tomb has added another layer to the complex legacy of Caiaphas, one that extends beyond the biblical narrative and into the realm of archaeology and academic inquiry. As scholars continue to analyze the tomb and its inscriptions, the story of Caiaphas, Annas, and their roles in the first century remains an open book, one that challenges us to think critically about the intersection of history, faith, and leadership. If you found this content interesting and would like to dive deeper into the stories of the individuals who shaped biblical history and their lasting impact on the world, be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our future uploads. Don't forget to check out the recommended videos on the screen. I'm confident you'll enjoy them. Until next time, may you be blessed and inspired by the journey through history.